I have learned over the years that when one's mind is made up, this diminishes fear. Knowing what must be done does away with fear. Rosa Parks. So I'm a terrible cook. I used to tell my family that I had magirorocophobia. Magirorocophobia is a term for an extreme fear of cooking. My spouse used to joke that someone would be giving me a call from America's Worst Cooks to invite me on the show. My daughter added, and I'd probably win the prize. What my recipe suffered from was an overuse of seasonings, like someone who can't discern between colors and can't sing on key. I couldn't tell the difference between which spice tasted better, so I added a dash of everything. Today, I still don't love cooking, but I can learn from others who are not like me, and I did. I asked for a few tips, and what I learned is if you use quality ingredients, keep it simple by only using as few as possible, and stick to the recipe. Suddenly, I was transformed into a chef, making something that was at least safe to eat. Today, I want to talk about an important topic: faith, pride, and DEI. I want to talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion. Don't you? I'm not sure how you feel, but some people in our country are saying we shouldn't talk about it. But when someone tells me that something that really matters to me can't happen, well, you might guess my reaction. Like a magnet, now you've got my attention. You and I both know when someone isn't talking freely, or we're not supposed to talk about that, to mention certain topics. Well, you get the feeling that something bigger is up, something with those people not talking and those who are instructing us not to talk about it. Well, for me, it becomes a mystery, and it motivates me to want to look into it more. I used to be a newspaper reporter, so I need to know the story when something seems off. In fact, nothing gets people more curious than when a book is banned. Why? What's in the book? The nature of a human being is free thinking, communicating, and self-expressing our identity. And good luck stopping that. As orders and laws and raids are issued and occur, they're going to be equally matched by underground meetings, behind the scene planning, and acts of resistance. Haven't governments figured out what parents of teenagers already know? If you tell a teenager not to do something, they'll in fact do the opposite. They'll do it. So, authority figure, whoever, whether a parent or a government leader, has to really be careful and think long term. So let's talk about diversity, DEI. I'll share a few stories. And 3 ingredients, almost magical ingredients, to cook up the good kind of trouble. I'm talking about what Representative John Lewis, 33 years in Congress for Georgia, would say when he was serving to his constituents and Americans. He called upon us to not get lost in a sea of despair. We must keep pushing and pulling and find a way to get in trouble, get in the way. Get in trouble, the good trouble, to redeem the soul of America. That's the kind when your integrity just craves justice. And so you know that you must speak up freely on DEI or any topic you wish to, while being yourself openly. Why? Because we have no choice. We are who we are. Progress cannot stop. So we need to stoke the fire in our bellies to get our energy up and keep staying strong. So what we need to do, I think, is feed our courage and fortify our dignity. That's all part of mental health hygiene. And if you want to make this into a cooking analogy, you could add a pinch of determination, and with any luck and help and guidance from this world and beyond, well, you can cook up a fierce batch of courage. We can keep moving. I'm struck by the term e pluribus unum. E pluribus unum is the Latin phrase on US currency, and it means out of many, one. Well, the origins are thought to come from the Roman philosopher Cicero, who, in referring to the social bonds that create the origins of societies, wrote, "When each person loves the other as much as themselves, it makes one out of many." Doesn't that sound like the golden rule? One of our highest spiritual principles? Does to me. So from this foundation of America, we know diversity is our founding national value, our vision, not something bad. We don't need to define diversity and DEI because it's just the many ways in which we are each unique, and we are called out federally and in Illinois as protected with certain classes and label. But I bet that not everyone knows that protected in Illinois are immigration status, language, citizenship status, work authorization status, sexual identity and orientation, age, and so many other classes. All that is law in Illinois. But at the same time in the state, federal ICE raids are scaring people, arresting them, violating our rights. Our state and others have not yet shut down all of this ICE activity in the courts. So the problem is, while we're waiting for our legal rights to be returned to us and for the courts to prevail, is that you and I, as people who both have seen and unseen kinds of diversity, watch the news, listen to the radio, and, well, it can get to us. We can feel a little sad that nobody would care about us either if something happened. Who would help? If we are disappearing or arrested because of our diverse status, that is something that we cannot imagine, but we do because of all the cases going on in our country. So as a result of this fear campaign, many of us, well, we've started staying a little quiet. We're not posting on our social media. Companies are taking down DEI on their websites, even though it is not a requirement of law. It's just an order. We're also, many, not protesting. We're having some fear of some sort of retaliation, and we're not even certain what it might look like, but there's a feeling. So if it feels like we've got no cavalry coming on horses to support us, if we're under attack, if we're fired, detained, or deported, that is what I have to change. I have to change this in myself, for anyone listening, because that is fear talking to us. And that's the thing that is attacking us and our freedom and our rights. So let's transmute fear into faith. There are 3 ingredients to transformation: believing, feeling, and doing. 3 sparks. These 3 sparks will get the embers burning in your belly. Just try to use one in your life and see what happens. The first of the 3 ingredients to transmute fear into faith is the ingredient that's at the base of the recipe. So you're going to saute the other ingredients in this base ingredient, and the base is belief. Let's call this the Jose Antonio Vargas vibe. Belief or faith is a vibrational superpower. If you can try out and test what happens when you use a belief vibration, it just might surprise you. So let me tell you a little bit about Jose Antonio Vargas. Jose Antonio Vargas, his ingredient, I'll call the not so secret sauce. So this is a person who is not only openly undocumented and living in the USA, he is openly LGBTQ+. So he was sent here to live when he was a child, and he didn't even know that he was undocumented. His mother sent him, and he was to live with someone she said was his uncle. When he went to get his driver's license when he was turning 16, he was told his documents were fake. He left so confused. When he went to the person that was his uncle, he was told that, yes, you are not a legal citizen. So with this new information about his identity, he decided he would work hard and do his best to try to succeed in every aspect of his life to protect him till he could figure this out. So as an adult, he got hired to be a journalist for the Washington Post. And it was at that time that he decided to come out to his supervisor. And he told him the complete truth, that he was, quote, an illegal alien, unquote. a terrible term, but that he didn't have full citizenship. He was undocumented. His supervisor said, "Thank you for telling me. I know that you are talented and a person that I'm sure will be documented. So I'm going to cover for you." What a courageous supervisor. So he worked so hard that his team of reporters won the Pulitzer Prize for their coverage of the Virginia Tech shootings. Later, he wrote an article for the New York Times Magazine about life as an undocumented resident. That's correct. He came out to the world that he was illegal. That was a defying act of bravery. And as a matter of fact, an elementary school was renamed after Jose Antonio Vargas because of his courage in being honest. He said it was that moment with the school bearing his name that he felt his grandmother was the most proud of him. So what happens to people like Jose Antonio Vargas? You would think in 2025 that he would be arrested and deported as an example. But in 2025, he was issued a 3-year visa for his extraordinary ability. And he has updated the world recently that he is still here, still present, and fighting for immigrant rights while their status is not yet fully documented. He has a YouTube show, Define American. How could this be? How could somebody who is not allowed to be here be issued a 3-year visa after being here since a child, undocumented? I believe if you use the Vargas sauce at the base of your belief that you are righteous and powerful, that you too will find support comes around you and that you are protected. Vargas's visa has not been revoked due to his belief that he belongs here. You belong here. Believe it. The second ingredient in transformation is feeling. For this, we're going to feel fiercely defiant that this isn't it. Not giving into giving up and feeling sad when someone says you can't. I'm going to call this the Alex Roca Campillo spice, the spice of spice. When many of us see someone with a diverse ability, if they seem so different from us and need help, sometimes some of us pity them. But did you know that pity is another form of judgment? It's so difficult sometimes to see a neurodiverse person with autism who is unable to understand basic communication norms, or a person in a wheelchair, stimming, unable to talk yet trying to get your attention. A person who needs help being fed. But pity and judgment are not accurate and can cause harm. So Alex Roca Campillo from Catalonia, he knew that others were looking at him with judgment. He knew, not being able to talk, that he couldn't argue his point. He could speak, but not as well as those without cerebral palsy. But he was determined to achieve more than aiming to become a bag boy at the grocery store. So he envisioned to overcome his 76% reduction in mobility and be not only someone who could complete a little race, but the biggest and the best one. So he began to have the feeling that he had won. He used this vision and the feeling to compete in a marathon. He was the first person with cerebral palsy to enter a marathon and finish it in 2019 in Barcelona. Alex dreamt it, he wanted it, and he felt it. He felt the feeling of dreaming the impossible dream long before he achieved it. Nike sponsored him and has rightfully called him a legend. In 2024 in Paris, he completed the Olympic marathon in a time just over 6 hours. He now is a motivational speaker. The third ingredient to transformation is the doing. For doing, let's tell the story and use a dash of Rosa Parks. The Rosa Parks story and movement is one that most everyone has heard. So I'll try to limit it to things that maybe some do not. 60 years ago today, not today, but this year, a woman who was tired from a long day of work got onto the Montgomery, Alabama bus, and there were just a few seats left on it, but they were in the white section. In the 1950s, there were signs saying white, and it marked off the front of the bus. And in the back, it was for those who were Black. So when a white passenger boarded the bus in 1955 and Rosa Parks had to stand, she decided she just was not going to stand, even though the bus driver had approached her and told her to get up and move, give up your seat so this white person can sit down. That was the law on buses. The law was separate but equal. That doesn't sound equal. Did you know that if there were no more seats and there was no standing room left on a bus and a white person got on, a Black person would be asked to get off the bus to make room for them, no matter how many miles they were from their home? That does not sound like equal. Rosa Parks wasn't the first person to refuse to give up her seat of color. Lily Mae Bradford, Irene Morgan, Claudette Colvin, and others had refused to do so before her. But we remember Rosa Parks because it was her refusal that sparked a protest not to ride the bus on the following Monday. The organization that took place, flyers were passed out instructing everyone to walk or get a ride, take a cab. And on that Monday, no one except people who didn't care rode the bus. But do you know how long that protest went on? It wasn't just that day or that week. 381 days. That is mind-boggling. Can you imagine in this day and age when we're inconvenienced to go to one protest because the weather's bad or it's far? Can you imagine walking to your work or school in any weather for 381 days to make a point? I can't imagine that. But they were peaceful and determined. 1 year later, the Supreme Court ruled buses cannot be segregated. In the moment that Rosa Parks was asked by the bus driver to give up her seat and stand so the white person didn't have to, she is quoted as saying, "I felt a determination cover my body like a quilt on a winter's night. And I said no." In conclusion, when you hear the news and it sounds scary and you find yourself questioning whether you can believe in your safety living in America for the years to come, remember the 3 ingredients: believing, feeling, and doing. They can transform you. Perhaps if it's easier to remember, remind yourself of rock, paper, scissors. Fear covers faith, but faith cuts through fear. And the visibility of your diversity, of you and of me being ourselves, whether marching in a parade, wearing a button, a lanyard that has the colors of our flag or our identity, that kind of visibility smashes through the silence and it transmutes fear. It frees us up to open up, to live our truth. Visibility and words, they give folks who might fear that they're not welcome the faith to know they are. We are. You are very welcome here.